Well, our final presentation of the day is a very special presentation. We've had John Baumann here before, and he has been incredibly well received, and I'm sure that he's got just as inspiring a presentation today. John had a promising law career. He's a graduate of Cornell Law School, very talented baseball player, and was diagnosed with Parkinson's at age 41. But that didn't stop him. He became a teacher at the College of Business at the University of Louisville. He's become a critically acclaimed author, an inspirational speaker, a success coach. He's traveled the world with his message. He's landed here in Buffalo today, and I want to offer ahead of time a congratulations. His son is graduating from Boston College, University of Villanova Law School today, and he's come here. Thank you, John. Okay.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me in the back? Well, I want to commend you on your leadership in your support group, because most places have me back every 3 to 4 years. They're having me back every other year, so they're a lot smarter than everyone else. You heard a lot of information today, and one of the things that struck me was the 200 years since Shaky Palsy book came out from James Patterson. I want to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the cure for Parkinson's. That's what I want to celebrate. And it's going to happen. It'll happen. It'll happen soon. It'll happen in my lifetime, I'm sure of it. Or at least I'm optimistic of it. I need to grab the clicker. A lot of information. A lot of information. Some of it conflicted. I listened to most of the speeches. What do you do? Every doctor is different. Every person with Parkinson's is different. So what do you do? Well, you gather as much information as possible. You come to events like this, and you gather the information, and then you bring it back, and you analyze it, you look into it, you research it, and then you go see your doctor, your movement disorder specialist, and you talk about it. And that's what you're doing here, and that's the important part of what you're doing here. I want to talk about caregivers. People love titles, PhD, MD, JD. Well, you caregivers in the audience, family caregivers, you have initials too. It's RTBDA, RPDDA. And the reason I came up with this is when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I remember the day, I didn't thank the doctor. I mean, would it be natural to thank the doctor? Thank you very much for diagnosing me with Parkinson's. Well, he did you a favor by doing that, because you could start the road to better health and better quality of life. But you don't think to thank the doctor, so the doctor doesn't get the thank you. And I had a situation where that's pretty personal to me. And my daughter, before she was born, they were doing an ultrasound. And you know how the ultrasound is a joyous occasion, and you're trying to figure out the gender of the child. And they have this slippery gel stuff on the belly of the woman, and they're moving the thing around. Well, this nurse all of a sudden put down the paddles and walked out. Her expression changed from happiness to a grim frown. And I said, "What the heck is this?" And she came in with the doctor, and they replayed the ultrasound, and the doctor said, "I don't see it." She said, "It's right there." He said, "I don't see it." He said, "It's right there." He said, "I don't see it." Oh, there it is. I said, "What? What is there?" Well, my daughter had a hole in her diaphragm. When you have a hole in your diaphragm, there's nothing in the lung area, so the stomach moves up into the lung area and prevents the lungs from developing. That's not a good thing. She had about a 40% chance of living. We had to make the decision whether we terminated the pregnancy or not. Needless to say, we didn't. So when she was born, she was put right on life support. She ended up developing cerebral palsy due to that. But what was important about it was this ultrasound nurse, who I don't know her name, saved her life. And another child came in to our hospital from Evansville, and it was about an hour ambulance ride, and that ultrasound nurse did not see it, and he had the same condition. And by the time he got to the hospital, he had died. So this ultrasound nurse, I didn't thank her. I didn't say thank you. I don't even know her name. RTBDA, rarely thanked, but definitely appreciated. What I want you to do right now is, if your caregiver is here, or multiple caregivers, I had a chance to speak to some people back here, and it looks like two brothers that are here to help their father. I think that's beautiful. Thank your caregiver, whether it's a touch of the hand, a word, a kiss. Don't go any further than that. We're going to keep this G-rated. But let them know they're appreciated, because they're rarely thanked, but definitely appreciated. Yeah, give yourselves a hand. I still remember the day that I walked into a doctor's office, and I actually had I had broken my hand playing soccer. And they took off the cast, and my hand was shaking. And I went back to the doctor. I said, "Did you cut a nerve or something when you operated on my thumb?" And he said, "No. If you cut a nerve, your hand wouldn't be moving at all." And then he didn't say anything else. There was silence. So about 3 doctors later, I went in, someone sent me a neurologist, didn't tell me why. I walked in, I was the last patient of the day, I filled out the paperwork. It's virtually illegible, but I'm a lawyer, so that's par for the course. So I handed the doctor the paperwork, and the doctor said, "You have Parkinson's disease." I said, "Oh, time out. We just met. I just handed you some paperwork. You haven't taken blood, you haven't taken urine, you haven't looked up my nose, you haven't hit my knee with a hammer. How can you tell I have Parkinson's?" He said, "You have all the classic symptoms. You don't blink, and if you notice, I don't blink. I can blink, but I don't blink normally. I have a masked face. My arm didn't swing when I walked, which was weird, and I had the tremor." And I said, well, I demand a confirmatory test." He said, "That would be an autopsy." I waited on the autopsy. I said, "We'll wait till." So that was finding out, and what are we doing here today? Why are we here today? What's the goal of every person in this room? Not just the people with Parkinson's, but the people that are here with people with Parkinson's. What's your goal? Your goal is to live the highest quality of life you can for as long as possible. Let me say that again. Your goal is to live the highest quality of life for as long as possible with or without Parkinson's. So that's why you're gathering the information you are today and listening to these great speakers and doing the research, because you want to have the greatest quality of life. 5 years ago, I had all the tremors and symptoms of Parkinson's. I was sleeping excessively. I had tremors. I wasn't interacting. I had gotten depressed. I had just all the things that happen with Parkinson's. And then I went on vacation to St. John, the Virgin Islands, and I met this woman. And we met January of 2012. We got married February of 2012. Long engagement. I took her from St. John, the Virgin Islands, paradise, to Louisville, Kentucky. Now that's love. But she was an exercise enthusiast and a nutrition enthusiast, and it wasn't talked about a lot back then. Exercise a little more than nutrition. And she started doing these things in my living room. Shaun T, Insanity. You ever see the infomercials? She's jumping over imaginary logs. I thought I had the hallucinations. She's jumping over imaginary logs. She's doing the Heisman maneuver. She hates football. She's doing the Heisman maneuver and running around the living room, and I'm watching her do this, and she's not pushing me. She said, "This is my routine, and this is what I do to stay fit," and she just did these exercises. And I finally got up off my ass and said, excuse me, got off my butt and said, "I can do that. I'm pretty competitive." And a lot of you out there are competitive. Use that competitiveness to your advantage. And I started doing I didn't do it well, but I started doing these exercises. And then she only had nutritional stuff in the house. Boy, that sucked. But if you only have nutritional stuff in the house, that's all you're going to eat. So I dropped 45 pounds unintentionally. My cholesterol went from 180 to 90, bad cholesterol. I stopped taking cholesterol medicine, and all my symptoms disappeared. or at least they show up rarely. I've got a little tremor right now. But that to me was a miracle. It was a miracle. My mother calls it divine intervention, that someone put that woman on this earth for me. And so I moved her to Sarasota, Florida, where there's beaches, because she really wanted that. So that's the story of Bernadette. And she couldn't be here today because she's attending my son's graduation. So life as you know it is changed forever when you get Parkinson's. When I put a tightrope up there, it's a tightrope because you're going to hear conflicting things. And it's a tightrope because you have to get in tune with your body. You have to know your body and know what's good for it and what's not. Try these different things. Try the nutrition issues. Try the sleep issues. Try the medications. But rely upon your body. When I was not sleeping well, I actually fell off my bed, and you talk about a bedside. I was a superhero standing on a helium balloon, and I jumped into the power lines over the Hudson River. That was my dream. I woke up with my face bloodied from hitting the nightstand with my face. My wife said, we're going to go see the doctor and talk to him about it. He prescribed Klonopin, just like she said. That was 10 years into my Parkinson's. I've been living with the sleep disorder for 10 years, and my doctor never told me, why don't you try Klonopin? I told him every time that I had sleep problems, that I was punching the headboard, that I was punching my girlfriend at the time. And you got to do your own research and then go see the doctor, because they don't have a lot of time with you. They have 10 to 15 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes. You got to do your own research. You got to take control, because you do have control. You have some control over the experience you have with Parkinson's. Let me say that again. You have some control over the experience you have with Parkinson's. Take control of your experience and work with your doctor when you do it. These are the questions you need to ask yourself. Can I trust my decisions? I have made some terrible decisions since I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. I built a 4,750 square foot house about 20 minutes outside of Louisville for two of us. 5 bedrooms, 4.5 baths. My wife said, I'm not cleaning that. I'm not cleaning this house. It's too big. I don't know why I did it. I always wanted to do it. But it wasn't a smart decision. Now we consult, and she has a veto power over everything I do. And it's worked out pretty well. Is it safe for me to drive? Let me tell you, it wasn't safe for me to drive before I got Parkinson's. I was a terrible driver. Now at least I don't have the ice to deal with. Sorry. Sorry, Charlie. Sorry about your luck. But I don't have the ice to deal with, and that's good, living in Sarasota. But I still have off periods where when I'm trying to make a left turn, I hit the curb on the other side. Anyone experience that? Where you're slow, I have to stop the car and take my medicine and wait. And that's a scary thing. So most of the time, Bernadette does the driving. And that's not fun. It's like a loss of independence. And you got to deal with it. There's a lot of things you got to deal with, and that's what you got to deal with. Prepare. First things first. When someone's diagnosed with Parkinson's, and what's interesting is this crowd is not really the crowd for this, because you already probably have been diagnosed with Parkinson's or you wouldn't be here. There aren't people here saying, if I ever get diagnosed with Parkinson's, I want to learn what it's about. But first things first, when you're diagnosed with Parkinson's, you go and tell your family. Well, is that the smartest thing to do? Don't you want to find out more about it before you tell your family, because they're going to have a lot of questions and they're going to be scared? If I had to do it all over again, if I knew then what I know now, I would have done some research before I told my family. Do you go into work and just tell your work? Think about that. Think about the reaction you're going to get. So these are things you need to think about as you prepare. These are the people that you need to get on your team. And I talk about a team a lot, but get on your team. You need a movement disorder specialist. We had one here just speaking. An employment attorney. Because there's the ADA and the FMLA, and if you're still working, These are things you need to deal with, and you don't have the experience to do it, so get an employment attorney. Financial advisor, benefits specialist, therapist, nutrition expert, fitness trainer, yoga studio, massage therapist. There's all sorts of people that need to be on your team. And if you don't have this full team, go out and get the resources you need. Emotional roller coaster. Someone said to me that I seem to be mature in my emotional state related to my disease. I've had it 15 years now. Well, I'm not mature in my emotional state. I'm embracing adversity. I'm embracing it and doing everything I possibly can, and that gives me some thought. But I still have the depression. I still have the scared feelings. I still have the shock. I think I'm still in shock. I think you can relate to that. One of the other symptoms that I have is denial. I still sometimes question whether I have Parkinson's because I don't always have the disease, and then whenever I question whether I have Parkinson's or not, it hits me hard. So I know I have Parkinson's. But depression's been talked about a lot today. And I was always an overly optimistic child. I was the definition of optimism. I made a fort once out of fencing, and my brother, when I was 10 and he was 8, I wouldn't let him in the fort. He picked up a rock and hit me over the head. There was blood everywhere. My mother took me to the emergency room. I had 10 stitches. My brother tells a story it was 2, but it was 10. So I got home that night, and going to bedtime was always an issue with my family. My brother went to bed first because he was the youngest. Then I went to bed. I was the middle child. Then my sister went to bed last. Well, that night, my brother went to bed, and my time to go to bed came and went. And I kind of laid it low. And then my sister had to go to bed. And I was up with my parents, and I'm going, what's going on here? They were afraid I had a concussion. So they had to keep me up. Then they brought out ice cream. Sorry about the ice cream comment. But I was young then, I'm allowed to have ice cream. So I had ice cream. And as the story goes, the history of my family, I said, this is the luckiest day of my life. I got hit in the head with a rock. I had 10 stitches, but it's the luckiest day of my life. Well, I learned what depression was. I was driving along about 6 months after I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and I went into the deepest, darkest hole there's ever been. I didn't care if I lived or died. I said, oh my goodness, what the heck is this? And it was depression. I came out of it about 20 minutes later, and I was like, just shaken. Not shaken, shaken. It happened about 2 weeks later, and I said, I can't go through this again. So that's when I went out and got antidepressants. There's no shame in having Parkinson's. It's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't drive a motorcycle with no helmet on. You didn't go to a second-rate bungee place. You didn't do anything wrong. There's no shame in it. If you have depression, it's a chemical thing. It's not your fault. So get the medication you need, get the therapy you need, whatever it takes to get rid of the depression, because you can deal with it, and it's something that you need to deal with. That's my soapbox comment on that. This shows something that you heard about today. The motor symptoms are just the tip of the iceberg. You heard about all the other symptoms. Well, let me tell you one other thing that happens with non-motor that no one talks about. Sexual difficulties. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but just know you're not alone, that a lot of people are dealing with these issues. And there's places you can get help for that, and you need to deal with that, because that's an important part of life. You've lost a lot of your fun things to do. I can't play softball anymore. I love playing softball. I was a semi-pro softball player. That means I went to Hooters afterward, and they paid for the shirts, and we got wings. That's semi-professional. But I was a shortstop for the Texas State Championship softball team. Well, when I turned 55 in Sarasota, Florida, they have a 55 and over league. So I said, I'm going to go back and play. I'm going to play again. And I went back, and I would be the youngest person there, so I was going to be a hot commodity. Well, the first ball was hit. This is batting practice. I forgot that Parkinson's plays with my perception. I reach up to catch this ball. It hits me in the head. I didn't stop there. The next ball that came, I started running, I pulled a hamstring. I didn't stop there. The next thing that happened was I dove for a ball. Now everyone's looking at me like, this is batting practice. What are you doing? I dove, I caught the ball and crushed my finger. My pinky is still, it's got a rod in it now. I retired from softball after 30 minutes. I was back in retirement. My wife that morning, this was before she had veto power, I said, I'm going to practice softball. She said, what? I said, I'm going to go practice softball. She said, all right, do whatever you want. That's one of the reasons I gave her veto power. These are all the non-motor things. You've heard some of them, but one of the things I want to point out that you don't hear about a lot is the loss of self-esteem, loss of self-image, loss of earning potential. I was 41, making good money as the general counsel of a NASDAQ-listed company when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. I lasted 7 more years till I was 48, but that was it. I lost that stream of income. That was my livelihood. That's tough, and a lot of you have had to deal with that. So you need to think about, that's why a financial advisor is part of your team. I want to spend my last dollar on the day I die. That's my goal. I'm just kidding, not really. But I don't want to run out of money, and that's where a financial advisor comes into play. So that should be part of your team because you need to think about it. What can you do about it? Isn't that the key question? What can you do about it? Educate yourself, form your team. You heard about that. I wrote a book called Decide Success. You ain't dead yet. And truly, you ain't dead yet. Parkinson's is something that is treatable, and you can slow the progression. I don't know that you can halt it, but you can slow the progression. But Decide Success, it talks about action plans. And action plans are small items. And I'll tell you, my action plans are exercise every day, eat nutritionally every day, take my medications every day, and get enough sleep every day, and get enough water every day. Those are my action plan items. Not big items, small items, things that you can do every day. My wife and I sit down on Sunday nights, and we schedule out our week. Because I've got to go somewhere or do something, or she's got to do something to go see the doctor, or all the sorts of doctors. So we schedule out, okay, when are we going to exercise? Let's put it down on a calendar. When are you going to make food today on Sunday that's going to last the week and put them in baggies for each day? Or am I going to be driving along at 2 o'clock in the afternoon having not eaten lunch and be tempted to go to a fast food restaurant when she could have made for me Ezekiel bread with hummus and a cucumber and had that sandwich sitting next to me in the car? So you plan ahead. You plan ahead. That's the best thing you can do. Schedule out your exercise. Make sure you get your exercise 6 or 7 days a week. I used to do 10 minutes on the elliptical once a month and think I exercised. That's not exercise. Muhammad Ali, the late Muhammad Ali, I hate saying that, used to say, my training begins when I don't think I can take another step. You've got to push yourself on your exercise beyond your comfort zone. And everyone here has a different comfort zone, different stage of Parkinson's. Some of you are wheelchair bound, but there's things you can do in a wheelchair. There's Ageless Grace, which does things, motions in chairs. There's something you can do to exercise. Everybody, there's something you can do. And everybody can eat better. Everybody can eat better. And you don't need to have Parkinson's to know that. So form your team and educate yourself. Resources. Figure out what your resources are. Your support group, wonderful resource. Physical therapist, dermatologist, mental therapy, voice program. There's all sorts of resources out there. Get to know your resources and use them best you can. Attitude. Believe in yourself and your team. That's extremely important. Believe in yourself. You've gotten a hit to the ego. This is a big hit. It's like getting hit by a fastball between the eyes. You've got to deal with that. Just recognize it and believe in yourself. There's a guy named Tim Story that talks about regain your shout. Remember when you were like 8 to 10 years old and you'd come home and you'd open the door and say, "I'm home!" No one might be home. Parents' cars could be not in the driveway, so you knew nobody's home. But you still announce your presence with authority. Well, get that swagger back. Get that swagger back. You haven't done anything wrong. You got Parkinson's. Be proud of it. I'm a proud person with Parkinson's. Don't feel ashamed of it. So I call it reclaim your perspective. I am positively unshakable. That's what I call myself, positively unshakable. Positive and unshakable. Shaking tremors, ha ha. Who's this guy? Ted Williams. Why do I bring up Ted Williams? Ted Williams was thought to be the most arrogant son of a gun there ever was. Well, he was a baseball player from 1945. He's the last guy to bat 400. That's 4 hits out of every 10 times up. When he was interviewed at 65 years old by a reporter, the reporter said, "How do you think you'd do against today's pitching?" He said, "I'd hit about 200, 220. The reporter was taken aback. He said, "You mean the pitching is so much better today than it was in your day?" He said, for Christ's sake, I'm 65 years old. How do you think I'd hit against today's pitching?" He actually said that. He still thinks he get 2 hits out of every 10 times up. That's a remarkable thing. That's believing in yourself. I'll tell you one more story about him. When he was batting 399.6. Last day of the season, it was a doubleheader. The coach comes to him and says, "They'll round it up to 400. You'll get your 400, but I'm not going to play you the doubleheader." He said, "What are you talking about? I'm playing." He went 6 for 8 and ended up 406. That's confidence in yourself. And you need to show that same kind of confidence. You need to believe in yourself and believe in the people that are around you. Believe in your team. Believe in this. I am the greatest. I said that even before I knew I was. Wow, what a powerful message that is. My daily action plan, I already mentioned it, but I also stay engaged, mentally stimulated. And they talked about crossword puzzles, but there's much more than that, and she talked about that as well. That there's doing things that you feel are purposeful. I feel very purposeful doing what I'm doing right now. Did I feel purposeful when I worked for a corporation as a lawyer? Yes. We went from 900 employees to 1,600 employees during my tenure there. That's 700 people that could put food on their tables and shelter over their heads. That made me feel good that we added 700 more jobs to the economy. This feels a little bit better. This feels a little bit better. And hopefully you can sense that from the love that I show for what I do. This is my slide on nutrition. I don't need to say any more than that. Stay away from fast food restaurants. Don't drink Diet Coke. Don't drink regular Coke. Drink water. My goodness, is that a big thing? But the funny thing about, they talk about urologists, but then you drink 6 cups of coffee, 3 cups of green tea. That's a lot of drinking of water. That's Bernadette. And that's me. When I went in to do kettlebell, it had been after training. She trained me for about 6 months, and it was training. She had me on the treadmill, on the elliptical machine. I moved to the spin bike with standing and sitting and standing and sitting and standing and sitting. And then we did Shanti, and then we moved to kettlebells. The core instructor said, "There's no way he can do this." Well, that's the best thing for him to say to me. That was the best thing for him to say to me. Because after about 6 months, he said, well, he did it, and there I am in his, this is what he uses for advertisement. So my book talks about intensity. Intensity. You've got to show some intensity. You've got to have discipline and inner strength. Do you have the inner strength to get through this? Do you have the inner strength to get through this? Do you have the discipline to get through this? Let me tell you what drives me. Just mentioned my son's graduating from law school. My daughter is a sophomore in college. When I'm halfway through my workout, and these workouts are tough. They're tough workouts. All I think about is them and their children. They don't have children yet, but their children someday. And do I want them to see me as someone who's given up, someone who's deteriorated, or someone who's put the best fight on possible? You know what my answer is. That's halfway through my workout, I say, I got to get through this. I got to finish. And I feel great once I'm done, but it's tough all along the way. That's what I looked like pre-transformation. I was inflamed. I was double-chinned, maybe I still look good. But I was quite a bit. And this is when I first met Bernadette. You could see the inflammation in my face, the redness. You don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. You don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. You people with Parkinson's, you don't have a choice. You people without Parkinson's, you have a choice. Make the choice to join in and do the things that they do. That will help them more than anything else in the world. Jim Valvano. Jim Valvano was a great coach and a great inspirational speaker. One of the things he said was, if I laugh, I think, and I cry, whether tears of joy or tears of sadness, every day, I've had a heck of a day. A heck of a day. That's what living's about. And you can live every day that way. Are there any positives about having Parkinson's? What? Positives about having Parkinson's? Well, this book was just about being successful as a student and successful in a profession or a career. Well, I got to add a whole new layer to it. Success with Parkinson's, with a chronic illness. So it helped me write a better book. That's positive. It's kind of weird to say, but it's positive. We were talking at dinner last night, and someone said the glass is half full or half empty. Well, guess what? There's another way to look at it, and I'm going to try to ask you to look from a different perspective. Is that glass half full or half empty? Well, think about this. There are not just two elements in the world, solid and liquid, the ice and the water. There are three elements in the world. What's the third element? Gas, air. That glass is full. Every glass is full. So look at it from that perspective, that every glass is full. Why do I put up the movie Overboard? That's Roddy McDowall. Roddy McDowall was a famous actor. He could take any role he wanted. He took the role of a butler on a yacht in this show. And the movie was about Overboard, where Goldie Hawn was rich. She lost her memory. She thought she was poor. She was poor for a while. Then she realized, then she remembered, and she went back to being rich. And she was in the galley with the crew and said to her butler, Andrew, she said, Andrew, what am I going to do? I don't feel like I'm part of any world. And he said, Madam, this is the line that I think he took the role just for this one line. He said, Madam, we all have blinders on. You've had yours removed for a short period of time. What you do with that information is entirely up to you. We all had blinders on before Parkinson's entered our lives. We had our blinders removed. What are we going to do with that? Are we going to do something different with our lives? Are we going to have more purpose to what we do? What are we going to do with that? Are we going to be more service-orientated? I don't know. That's up to you. That's your decision. I can't tell you what your decision is. You need to uncover your purpose. And I say uncover your purpose for a reason. The purpose is already there. You're not creating it. You're just uncovering it. It already exists. You're just uncovering it. So find your purpose and use your vision. Teaching was my purpose. I taught 1,000 students at University of Louisville. That was awesome. My mother was a professor, my dad was a high school teacher, my sister's a teacher, my brother's a teacher, so I just joined the family profession. I write articles all the time. If you look at my website, I have articles almost every week. And then helping others. I get initials too. You get initials, I get initials. I'm an inspiring success speaker and workshop facilitator who just so happens to have Parkinson's. That's how minimal it is. Who just so happens to have Parkinson's. It's not who I am, it's what I have. As they say, and you've heard it a million times, I am not Parkinson's. I have Parkinson's, but it's not me. I want to show you this. It's kind of cool. I got to go to Malaysia. The people from Malaysia invited me over there to speak. And that's a newspaper. And I still, if anybody knows Mandarin Chinese and can translate that for me, I'd appreciate it, because I still have not read that article. I have no idea what it says. We went, my wife and I, we just started eating a little bit of meat, but we were vegetarians for 5 years. And we went to lunch one time, and they kept spinning the Lazy Susan around, and the boiled chicken head ended up in front of my wife every single time. She didn't appreciate that. My mother is a wonderful woman, and she is my confidant. And she said to me, you know, John, this was about 14 years ago, right after I got Parkinson's, she said, you know, everything happens for a reason. I said to her, Mom, I'm a lawyer, I pick up on words. You've always said everything happens for the best. Why did you change your best expression? She said, because you got Parkinson's, and I can't imagine that's for the best. Wow. What a motivator. I still don't think it's for the best. Maybe you do, but I don't. But it's more than for a reason, and it might be for the best, because I get to do what I'm doing now, as opposed to what I did then. So that could be for the best. Would Michael J. Fox have raised $400 million for Parkinson's research had he not gotten Parkinson's? No. I read his book, Lucky Man, and he was on the road of many actresses or actors. He was going down the wrong path when he got hit with Parkinson's, and now he's a hero. Like I say, uncover your purpose, and that's faith. Faith enters into it. That's one of my 12 action steps in my book. I'm active in the World Parkinson's Program that gives medicine to patients around the world. Maintain your sense of humor. I did not know till I got Parkinson's and went to New York City that I dressed like a Smurf. But I was walking down the road, and there was a Smurf, and he had the same outfit that I had on. Anyone have dystonia? I got it a little bit earlier, and they talked about dystonia earlier, where your foot turns to the side and cramps up. Well, I was in Vienna with my wife, walking on a bridge, and I got dystonia for the first time. My foot cramped up, turned to the side, and toes went all sorts of ways, and it was very painful. And she said, well, sit down and let's see if it passes. Take some medication, see if it passes. And I sat there, and about 5 minutes later, she took my hat off and put it to me upside down and said, at least make some money while you're down there. I can't make this up. These things happen. I used to play poker with my buddies, and I was not a good poker player. Well, I got Parkinson's. No one could tell when I got the fourth queen. My facial expression never changed. They banned me from the game. I used to not take my medicine for 2 days before, just to... New assessment. We talked about this at dinner last night. Everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses. Maybe we've got more weaknesses now, but we've still got some strengths. Focus on your strengths. Focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. Focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. New end vision. Have an end vision. Have a vision, something that'll keep you going. Like me with my grandchildren that are unborn, that don't exist yet, that I want to be able to play with and not have Parkinson's slow me down in that respect. Raise your level of awareness. That's why you're here. Tap into your resources and contacts, increase intensity to have faith. I love this phrase, and I know we're running late, so I'm going to try to speed this up. Too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn the life around. You can influence your experience with this disease. Start today to bring hope back into your life. Let me tell you a story of what happened in San Antonio about a year ago. And like I'll do today, I know I'm the last speaker, but there's going to be questions and answers. I'll stay as long as people want to stay and individually talk to anyone that wants to talk to me. And I've got a few books out there, autograph if you want. But I was in San Antonio, and the last person that wanted to speak with me, I said, do you have Parkinson's? He said, no, but my wife does. I said, where's your wife? She said, she's home, she's in a wheelchair, and she's got rheumatoid arthritis as well, and she really wanted to see you. She's watched you on YouTube, and she's a big fan. I didn't know I had fans, but I guess I have fans. And she just felt so bad she couldn't be here. She was beside herself. I said, what are you doing now? Said, what do you mean? I said, you live close to the airport? I said, yeah, it's on the way. Let's go. So we went to his house, and we saw her, and she was blown away. I didn't know I could blow someone away, but that was cool. She said to me something that was really telling. When he left the room, she was a teacher until she had these illnesses. She said, I'm thinking about taking my own life. And I said, who are those pictures of the kids on the wall? I said, those are my grandchildren. Have you taught them everything you need to teach them? She said, no. I said, then you have a reason for living, don't you? Pretty powerful. I think I made a difference that day.